Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Troybilt TB25SB string trimmer. Customer complaint is that it's like brand new, but it doesn't run. Yeah, it doesn't even seem to pop. So because this is brand new, I really don't think it's got a stiff metering diaphragm or any other fuel-related problem. It's certainly possible, but the odds are better that there's an ignition problem. So let's test it for spark. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything at all. So the possibilities are a bad ignition coil, certainly. A bad kill switch. A poor ground between the ignition coil and the engine block. Or even, a problem with the magnet on the flywheel. So what I want to do is I want to gain access to the coil. I have to remove that whole red cover. In order to do that, I got to pull the shaft off of there. In order to pull the shaft off of there, I have to remove the throttle cable. So I just squeeze the two tangs on the cable. It pops out of the holder. We pull the Z-bend out of the linkage on the carburetor. And now there's two screws on the front of the shaft that come out, and we'll have access to the cover. These are T20 torque spit screws. And this should come right apart. There we go. We'll just set that shaft off to the side. So to get the cover off of here, there's going to be 3 screws on the front. These are going to be fine thread screws, so don't mix them up with anything else. They're going into the crankcase. But this black cover on the back has to be removed as well. So there's 1 screw and then a couple of hooks on the top. Now the red piece should just come right off of there. The problem is the adapter where the shaft for the drive cable goes. It's not passing through the end here of the housing. It just doesn't want to fit. I don't know why. I've never seen this problem before. So we're just going to have to force it a little bit. It's really on there. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a handy dandy scrunch and use it as a pry bar. This scrunch truly is a multi-tool. And we're just going to influence it a little bit, and there it goes. So now I have 2 wires from the kill switch going to the coil. And we'll use our handy dandy scrunch again to pop one of the wires off. And the other one is a ground wire. And that goes through one of the mounting screws on the coil, so we'll remove that. So now the switch is completely out of the circuit. If we were to spin that engine over, we could test for spark. We're going to put that other screw back in because we will be testing it. Problem is I don't have a starter rewind on here right now. So we'll have to get a little creative on how to spin this thing. So on the end of that cable adapter is a square hole. And we're going to use a slotted bit pushed in there on an angle into that square hole, and it'll bite. Then we'll be able to spin that motor over and check for spark. no spark. So it's not the switch. It could be the ground between the coil and the engine block. And in order to test that ground, we would use a multimeter, and we would touch one probe to the cylinder and the other one to the laminations on the coil, and we should see less than 2 ohms of resistance, or no more than 2 ohms. We are going to replace the coil, and I was just looking to see if it was the same part number or not, and I don't remember if it was, or if it was a superseded coil. But sometimes these things are shipped with either some kind of clear coat or sometimes some protectant of that, and we want to just make sure we have a good connection between the coil and the cylinder. You know, electricity needs a complete path to follow, and you can't just hold the coil out ungrounded and expect it to fire a plug. There has to be a completed circuit, and that ground is part of that circuit. So I just have the screws loose right now. We're going to get our 0.3 millimeter gap gauge, and we're going to snug this thing down. Now we should be able to do our test again with the drill and see if we have spark. And I don't think you could see that on there, but we did have spark. So I'm going to snug down one of the screws, and then the other one that has to go through the grounding terminal for the switch, that one I got to take out. And then I'll pass that screw through the terminal and remount it. Wires are kind of short here, just as long as they need to be to make this happen. So that wire is secure, then we'll push on the other terminal on the coil. Now we can put everything back together. So that cover even pushed on there a little bit hard. I don't know why there's such a tight tolerance there. So we'll replace this plastic, well, I don't know, guide, bushing, whatever it is, along by the coil wire. Then we'll get the spark plug turned in and snug down. It's a lot easier to do this now as opposed to when that cover's on there and then you got to work around it in a little bit tighter quarters. Yeah, that's plenty tight, buddy. Looked like I was really cranking on it, but I didn't have a good leverage right there. So now we want to find our 3 fine thread screws, and we'll run them in on this side of the cover. You'll notice that I'm using an impact driver, and a lot of people will think that, well, you could strip the screws. Well, this impact driver has a clutch on it, and you'll notice that even after I run the screws all the way in, I still have to hand tighten them, turn it a little bit further. I do that on purpose so I don't strip screws. Now there are no buffers or cushions for that fuel tank, and there's only one screw for this cover. There's a couple of hooks on top. We just get that stuff all lined up. Drop the cover down and put the one screw in there. Yeah, they don't want to have any extra screws on this one. That's cost money. There, we got that all together. So now the next step is going to be, we're going to put that shaft assembly back on the power head. Theoretically, the hardest part of this is going to be lighting the cable up with the end of that adapter, but in this case, bang, went right together. Sweet. 2 screws, not very big screws either. We'll get these screws in there, then we'll get the throttle cable put on and give it a test run. See if it'll start. So we got our Z-bend cable. We got to pass the cable through the hole, put it in the throttle linkage on the carburetor, and then snap it into place. Then we'll try and start it. And if it does start, then that's all I'm going to have for you on the Troybilt TB25 SB string trimmer. That wouldn't start because it needed ignition coil. Thanks for watching. Later.